everybody, and welcome to today's LEGO Technic video. What I'm going to be presenting today is a 2-speed automatic gearbox. Now the idea for this design came about from one of my subscribers. He calls himself Pants in My Ants, and he was after a 2-speed automatic gearbox, and one of the criteria was that it was as small as possible. So here it is. Hope you like it. Now, one of the key components when designing an automatic gearbox is a method for detecting the torque between the input and the output, and that torque detection allows you to change the gears to a lower gearing ratio. Now, one method I would normally have used in the past is to use a differential like this, and to have that differential between the input here and the output. And if that differential, the central differential, is for example held tight with a friction pin, what happens is that if we turn the motor on, we can see that the output's rotating, but as soon as we put some loading on it, we can see the torque on that output is making the differential rotate. And we use that rotation to drive the gear changing mechanism and change gears downwards. However, instead of using the differential, what I've done is I've used this technique here where you've got this lift arm, and when a gear drives another gear that's on that lift arm, it actually ends up pushing in this direction. For example, if you've got the rotation like that, that bottom gear is rotating in this direction, and it's in fact those teeth are pushing along towards the right. And if that gear, obviously on a movable axle, will just rotate, but if that gear is more on a higher friction axle, what will happen is actually push to the right unless it's being held down very tightly. And this is the mechanism that I've used in the automatic gearbox, is that once the force on the output is high enough, it will actually start pushing that gear to the right and the lift arm to the right as well. And that's the exact technique I've used to change gears. And this lift arm in my design is held back by some rubber bands, so that once it gets pushed across, if the load is reduced, it will pop back again. Okay, so I'll now just demonstrate the gearbox in action. So what we've got over here is the input motor. That motor drives these two different gearing paths that give us the two different possible output speeds. In the middle there we can see that red lift arm. That's the one that's responsible for changing gears when the load is high enough. And over here we've got the output. So we'll just turn it on. And as you can see, we've got the output going quite quickly, and as soon as I put some loading on the output like this, it changes gears and slows down. So there we go, high speed and low speed. So I'll just show you a more detailed version of the actual automatic gearbox switching mechanism. So what I've got here is a mock-up of the actual design. The idea is that along the top we've got two inputs going at two different speeds. So this is the speed 1 and speed 2. Those are connected to the motor through a gearing mechanism. And what happens is that the lift arm has got this small gear in the middle that connects that top one to the output axle. And so when we rotate this top one here, it's connected there. However, we've got a similar mechanism around the back, but that gear is offset, and when that lift arm moves across, it's now connecting the back input to the output. So you can see here that in this position it is the front input that's driving the output axle. In this position it is the back output. And that's what gives you the two different speeds. So in this position we've got this speed, in that position we've got the other speed. And so as the torque on the output axle increases, it pushes that axle across, the lift arm across, connecting the back axle instead of the front axle. And that's pretty much how it works. And then we've got the rubber band pulling it back, so once that torque decreases, it gets pulled back again into gear 1. Now, unfortunately, there are a couple of issues with this design. The first one being that it can only go in one direction. The nature of this changing mechanism is that it only works towards the right. So if you reverse the direction of the motor, it'll push the lift arm the other direction, and the gear switching won't work. And that's not necessarily a big issue depending on your application. The other issue is that there is a point at which if the loading is just the right amount, it doesn't quite switch correctly. I'll just demonstrate that. So when the loading is quite strong, it'll switch quite nicely like that. However, there is a point at which if I just use the right amount of loading, it'll be right in between that switch point like this, and it'll sound a bit crunchy and not quite switch correctly. It's not that big an issue either, depending on the application. So if you do have a sudden load switch, it's fine. It's unlikely to find the exact loading to cause this issue. Alright, well that's the compact 2-speed automatic gearbox. I hope you liked it, and if you want to support this channel, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thank you.